Well, hello. I'm Dr. Chris Lemmon, and well, first off, I'm retired. I've been retired so long, I can't remember what from even. Uh, but as a retired person, I've become kind of a bit of a philosopher and a teacher. That's kind of my retirement interest. Um, I've got a blog site, wizardscatch.com, WIZARDSCACHE. And if you're listening to this talk right now, this is a YouTube channel, same name, Wizards Catch. Uh, why I'm talking is because I've got a new program that I'm kind of implementing for 2021, and that is I'm going to do a little chat each and every month. I've been blogging for quite a few years now. I used to have a center in Southern California, and we played with concepts and ideas, a cool group of people. We had a couple of hundred people that came in and out on a regular weekly basis, and probably a few thousand people down through the years that we operated. That was kind of fun, but it was time to retire, and that was just a sideline. I also had a real job, and so so I did all the above. I retired. I now live in the northwest part of the United States. It's still the United States, um, and been enjoying the background, as you can see. Most certainly, it looks like an autumn day because it's a pretense, but most of life is a pretense or an assumption, one or the other. Uh, so really looking at most of my life, I started out with kind of a vision of kind of a doomsday vision. When I was a kid, I always saw this thing. Uh, I would talk to a family and they would think that it was all the war because I was, I'm really old. So it was like a war going on. And when I was a kid. And so they all thought that was images of the war, whatever. Uh, we can't really say it came from TV because I was actually born before TV. Was no such thing. Uh, we used to go, I used to have to take a shower and get dressed up in my finery to go into the living room so I could sit with my grandmother and listen to radio shows. That to be in the living room, you had to be really clean. So that's how old I am. It's like scary. I can remember when TV came in, and most of the time we were just looking at that Indian figure on there with noise in the background. So TV wasn't the source of my inspiration. I'm not sure what it was, but I saw this thing and I kept seeing it all my life, and I started thinking all this confusion and change that was out there. It's kind of like an echo in the background. Uh, and I thought it was just all part of personal growth. It inspired me to seek into what's going on. It inspired me to ask a lot of questions. It's like, what am I, when I close my eyes to go to sleep, what is that vision? What is that comes up? There's all this chaos and confusion. Uh, anyway, it was really kind of an interesting scenario. I think somewhere in my growth and development and my education, I ran into a few books that really inspired me. Keegan's books, this may be backwards, I'm not sure how it'll come out. The Evolving Self, it was it started letting me know that all the changes that occur aren't always just in the idea of my thinking. Everything changes out there. Stuff on the outside changes as well as stuff on the inside. We look around and we think all that stuff is somewhat consistent. Well, now I've been on the planet for a long time and I realize that pretty much everything is some level of decay and entropy, but I didn't know that then. If that book, Keegan's book's a little bit of a challenge. Here's another book by that wonderful author that nobody can ever read his name. He's talking about the same thing. It's an easy read, not as much details, or you can get hundreds of books. He's got a dozen books out there, and it'll start to tell you that this whole package is evolving. So I started preaching that when I started realizing that it wasn't. At first, I thought it was my growth, everybody's growth. I thought we were all into some kind of a confusion piece. And so when I put together a center, I was really looking for an answer. It's like, what's going on? I started looking at the habit of people and their operation, how they operated. And I'm going, wow, that's kind of interesting. And I helped them a little bit by some of the things I learned in all these books. I've never owned a TV. I'm one of the silly old people who got like 2,000 books in the library and I read them. And so we start to dig into that. And I started putting together ideas. We did seminars, we did workshops. I think we were helpful to some people. Some people, whatever, right? But pretty much you just kind of played with that, and we started developing ideas. And then I started developing ideas. At some point in time, I said, okay, fine, I think I'm done with that. And I stepped away from all that interactive piece and decided I was going to really retire. So now this is me retired, and not talking to a whole bunch of people, or a few by phone, but I'm really hard to get hold of. And then I started looking at that, and I thought, wow, I still see this vision, but now I see this vision as an evolving piece. It's almost like the trees in the background are going to change, right? And of course, we've seen this, that the nature and the development of nature changing, right? So it's like, wow. So the scope has started to change. A few years ago, I did a webinar called Surviving the Cultural Change. I didn't really have an answer to it. I just used, I think, some of Gregory Bates's material, another author, and the ideas of how things evolve and how things are changing. And I really wanted to let people know that a lot of times when there's change out there, you think you did something wrong. I'm sorry, this is not your world. You just came into it. You're a big player in here, and you can influence it, and it influences you, but it's not all about you, right? So start to recognize that if things go astray, it's not necessarily your fault. You didn't do something wrong. Not always, right? So you can start to take a look, and yes, it's probably a good idea to examine what's going on. And when I started examining what's coming on, I started seeing that, wow, all my life I had this idea that it was kind of like a war. The confusion, disaster is like a war. That's just because that's the way it came to me as childhood. Then I started realizing, no, I think it's going to be a health crisis. So then I started a wellness code, and I put an idea together because I felt if this evolution hits, when this change occurs, it's going to be a health crisis. So I put together a wellness code. We started promoting that. I've done a couple other webinars. It's really difficult for my style of teaching, talking to a computer monitor. It's really challenging. Much, much better when I got real people in front of me. So I'm not all that excited about this whole process, but it's where we're at today, right? We actually did wind up into a health crisis. We're still in it. I don't see it ending real soon. I do see it getting more complicated. That'll be kind of interesting. But anyway, it's just what it is, right? I just want people that I see so many people call me and they're like, what am I doing wrong? My life's not working. What was important to me is not important to me anymore. And I just have to tell them over and over again, it's like you're in the midst of change that really has nothing to do with you personally. It's affecting you, yes, but it's nothing to do with personally. You got to step back and re-examine. I'm a storyteller. So let me give you a story, all right? Because that's kind of the best way that I play through things, right? We all are storytellers, right? We always put ourselves in a story, right? And we tell the story. We don't always tell the truth. Lying is just something that we naturally do. We make a lot of assumptions. We're not necessarily lying on purpose, but we get so supported by our idea that we package it very nicely. So if I tell you an outside story, then you start to see maybe how that unfolds. I think I was probably about 11 years old, and I was living in a neighborhood. My family had relocated when I was 9. So by this time I had made some friends in the neighborhood. I had a couple of boys about my age, 10, 11 years old, right around in there. You know, 1 year's a big difference when you're that age, right? Little kids, big kids. And so we were kind of hanging out together, the three of us. We explored, and a couple of blocks away from our house, we found a huge empty field, right? And we would wander in that field and play all the time. And for whatever reason, one day I noticed running across the field, there's one little area of the field that made kind of an echo or a weird sound. So we got out there with shovels, we started digging, and what we found was a full basement. There had been a house there at one time that probably got demolished or fell down or burned or knew was it. But there's a full basement with a dirt floor, basement. And it was covering a floor on top of it. And then probably a half a foot or a foot of dirt on top of that. We dug through that. We got some old sheet metal, some junk, and we built an entrance. And that was our fort. The three of us, it was our fort, man. We had the boys club. This was really kind of cool. We got fresh cardboard. We put it all down in there. We had lights in there. We could go down into this thing. I got a couple of different rooms in it. It was really kind of neat. It was like any boy's dream. It's like much better than treehouse, right? It's easier, right? So we were in there. We had a good time. Pretty soon we had the younger boys. There was 4 younger boys in the neighborhood. That's the 7 boys, because there was only 7 of us boys. There was a few girls, but they didn't count. But there was just 7 of us boys, right? So that's what we were doing. We were hanging out in our club. And we had all these plans. We sat around there with our little lanterns going, up, making up stories and making plans for the future. And we had the whole world solved. We just really went. And those little 4 boys sat there and listened to us 3 expound our wonderful ideas. And it was just kind of amazing. I remember one morning getting up, and the 3 of us got together and we kind of, okay, let's go to the fort, let's get the rest and go to the fort. And we headed over to our fort. And when we got to the field, to our dismay, they were plowing the field because they tore that whole thing up and they're building a series of track houses. Oh, welcome to America. That change occurs. So, and that was the nature of change. We were just totally depressed. Number one, the 4 boys, young boys, were extremely mad at us because we had lied to them, deceived them, told them all these wonderful stories that at their age, they believed 100%. We really kind of understood that we were kind of making things up, but they really believed us. That was scary. That made us liars. And then the 3 of us really had to kind of examine our own worth. I had to sit there and say, number one, just because we discovered that hole in the ground didn't mean it was ours. It actually belonged to someone else. It was someone else's hole in the ground, not ours. We just stole it. That's thing number one. And number 2, that cardboard we put down on the floor was probably not going to stay dry for very long. Eventually, it would have been back to dirt floors and dampness, not very long. The next thing is that there was no kitchen, no bathroom, no running water, no windows. It was not healthy and not safe because we had a foot of dirt and rotten timbers above our head. It was the most insane thing you could imagine. I'm sitting there at 11-year-old, come to Jesus time, so to speak, phrase, quotes, looking at that thinking, how stupid could I be? Yes, our friendship from the 3 of us kind of went south as we started finding different values and different interests in life that were less than a fantasy that we bought into. That's the product of human nature. Product of human nature is a very interesting piece. We fully identify with something and then we become that club, right? It's like you see people running around with shirts on that supports their team, right? Or you see fraternities that get all together and get all tanked up and then run over and attack another school, or even the silliness that we see in the beginning of this year with, a bunch of old fraternity members charging the White House or the Capitol building. It's like, because everybody has an idea that they want to defend. It's like, I started getting that when I was 11 years old. I started realizing like, wow, it's all going to change. I really need to get on the page where the change is. I need to look for new value. I need to I had to search inside me to not feel violated because my cool fort and all my ideas were stolen from me by the bad guys. It could have been silly. I could have went over and, I don't know, flatten a tire on one of the construction equipment or some silliness like that we read about all the time in the paper, probably because somebody's fort got stolen, right? Their dream got perished. But the intriguing thing about this human package, my story, and one I've been teaching, yes, I changed the label, I changed the discussion. I kind of play around with what we need to do with a group dynamic. Remember I said I had a center for a while, a couple hundred people in there. When you lead a group of people that have an idea that they're coming to the fort, you have to then tell them stories to support the idea of the fort. That, in other words, I'm telling you, leaders lie. I didn't see it as a lie. Leaders don't see it as a lie. They really say that you need to tell people and frame things in a context that people can relate to, so they can get in and develop and learn and experience what's going on for themselves. And that's the nature of it. It does sound like another story to justify. Yes, absolutely. But I think that's the nature of it. You could read even other books like this one, Why Leaders Lie, right? Uh, I got probably a dozen of those kind of books. So that nature of being able to, we're basically tribal people. The way I teach is that there's two components that are systems that we play. I call them systems that we play into. This is not like a novel new idea, so don't go taking down notes. It's in hundreds of books. It's been around probably since Plato's time. Concepts and ideas, there's a diversity piece in it, but I'm just kind of refreshing it, right? And the idea that we have this connection to creativity, innovation, where I'm sitting here in front of a computer monitor doing a talk. This is totally innovated, right? Uh, I can remember when cell phones came in. I told you, I can remember when TV came in. So I really come from the dark ages somewhere, really. And so when you start to look at this, it's like, wow, the amount of innovation is just absolutely amazing to me. Really, it's just totally amazing. And it's just profound, and I'm trying to keep pace with it, but it's hard getting into this brain that's in a habit of living in a different world. But I'm willing to embrace it. I'm advocating that you, every one of you out there, has this same level of innovation, and you have to bring that innovation into the world that we're living in right now. And that world's changing too. You're changing, and that world is changing. And that world is evolving, and that's not your personal growth. You have an own vision of yourself that you come into. It was kickstarted by family, right? My family gave me a name. My name was Ted, T-E-D, and they had a whole idea for me, right? And it was like, yeah, it was like, whatever. And it was so impounded into me, some combination of politics and religion and German community. And oh my gosh, you know, we ate pork, we did this, we did that. And I had to run away from home, practically speaking, for about 25 years to escape that forcement, or it felt like a forcement. Of course, it wasn't forced. It's another fairy tale like the fort, right? It was just like I had to be able to separate the demand outside of me to my own personal growth. Growth meaning I want to become potentially what I could be. I'm aspiring to become a better person. I want to be a different player in the world. So that's where my intent is. Can I be more useful? Can I be more interactive? We really want to belong to the group and support the dynamic of the group. It's just that the nature of the group is getting bigger. I think that the evolving growth is getting us to be eventually becoming one whole global world, one whole global people. But we're not one whole global people when we've got thousands of different languages, thousands of different ideologies, thousands of different platforms. We're going to have to be open to communicating to all those people and all those ideas. All those varying ideas were always hidden for a long time. Now we're getting into a world where we're already embracing that. We're embracing, yes, we're not real successful at it yet, but we're most certainly getting much, much better, right? We're starting to look at all the diversity within our culture, and we're starting to, like it or not, we're starting to look at the ability for other cultures to be innovative, where we thought we were the financial head of the world, and now we're starting to find it, yeah, pretty soon, in a few years, we're going to be like at least number 2. That's pretty much clear already to anybody that can read. And that dynamic is going to keep to change. We're already bridging gaps. We put in communication systems. Come on, the internet is amazing, right? It's everywhere in the world. We can look at any culture. I don't know if we'll ever get a universal language, right? But most certainly we'll start to be able to recognize that we're going to have to talk to people from different language groups. We're going to have to do business with people of different language groups, and we're going to have to interact with people with different language groups. And so that's where we're going to develop to. We've got to get to a global mindset where it's not us against them. It's like, how do we all get along? How do we bring that to play? And right now there's no connective link, right? So one nation's basically lying to another nation to support their little club somewhere in a field that someone's going to plow over sooner or later. It's like, it's the same thing. It's that tribal mindset, right? Great I think his name was Joshua Green, wrote some great books on tribal thinking. There's a lot of good material out there. So that's where I see that we sit at. I look at people as being part of that, has that innovation, that the phenomena that we see and have stories about most certainly are there, but they're not part of this logical system. So I'm seeing this, that we kind of bridge back and forth between a very creative system that it's just doesn't very well work in the logical system, but most certainly allows us to spectate, to see, to get involved in, to feel some phenomena and weird stuff that we can't explain. History's been there forever. They put stories on top of it, but we know the stories go flat. It doesn't take the depth of what we experience. A sunset, but you can talk about a sunset, but it's like, how do you define that? You know, look at the background on the computer here. And it's like, I'm trying to stage this where it doesn't look like I'm sitting in my office, but you know, we've got a bigger background. That's an inspiration that comes in. It's like, it's a bigger setting. That's the whole idea. We live in a bigger setting and we need to get our framing and our ideas around that bigger setting. This year, I'm going to do a talk once a month like this, just chit chat. It follows kind of link with my blog, so we can start to talk about what we can do. I'm not saying it's coming. At this point, I'm done with that. I'm telling you, we're in it right now. Look at the news, look out the window, look at everybody running. It used to be the bad guys wore masks. Now everybody's wearing a mask, right? Except for a lot of the homeless. Look at the world that we're moving into. Look at the change. And instead of trying to fight it, start to look at like, wow, how can we integrate into this and bring it all up and get all those people that are looking for a hole in the ground to hide in and play in as a fort, and have them come on out and get real in the real world. That's my goal in doing these talks. It's like, come on, you guys, let's do something. The world affects us. I get up in the morning, I look out the window to see whether it's raining or not, because that affects me. What I'm going to wear today affects that, right? I'm going to take a look, and I'm trying to plan a trip this year, and I got to look at what countries in the world are going to allow me to come in, right? Because of COVID. It's like, what's going on out there in the outside world affects me tremendously, because I retired with the desire to travel and do talks. And here I am stuck in my house looking for projects to do, right? I'm getting way too old for projects. I really need to get out and go explore the world. And that's what I'm attempting to do, but it's been a real challenge doing that with it. So this is what we're all facing. We're all being affected by this tremendously, but we can also affect that. We can change the dynamics of that. We interact with all that. I'm not saying that there's this amazing moment that's all going to go away. Although they're offering that, right? Because now you can see marijuana stores and everything all around, because they're saying, yeah, if you can't deal with the reality of change, step out a little bit, drink more. We're closing down restaurants and stores around, but all the liquor stores are open because that's necessary. Do you get this? It's because the system understands that most of you guys that can't accept change have got to numb down a little bit. Sit in your room, turn the television on, go into trance, smoke dope, drink booze, eat lots of sugar, and zone, smoke cigarettes, whatever, and just die. That's a sad way to deal with change. I think we need to perk up. I think we need to look out the window. I think we need to decide, with the changes occurring, how do I feel? How do I integrate? I don't have an answer. We want to explore that. This year, let's explore that. If you're going to be stuck and locked in this stupid house, turn on this monitor and let's go ahead and explore this. Let's see what we can do. You guys can contact me, chris@wizardscatch.com. Send me ideas or concepts, things you want to do. I can talk forever. Everybody that knows me knows that I can talk forever. I don't have the wisdom of some sage. I have been playing with all of this interactive piece with what I feel, what I can interact with. I've been asking questions. I've been reading those books. I'm probably a good resource, but not necessarily correct. So ask me a question, but don't accept it blindly. I'm not interested in lying to you. I'm not looking for followers. I don't even want your money. I am just saying, let's do this together. Let's embrace what's coming down. Let's see what we can do in our neighborhood, in our family, in our community group, not because we're special, but I think everybody needs to come together in some cell, some group to be able to connect, not with a political view, but with the fact that we should have a very global view, right? I have traveled to an awful lot of countries, and I'm just telling you, all those countries are basically starting to open up to the same idea. I saw that in Turkey, I saw that in Morocco, I saw that in Thailand. I most certainly saw those kind of ideas come through in a different sort of way when I was in China for a couple of months. All of that is opening up to a brand new world. And so this is what we got to do. So it's going to be a fun year. We can at least visit this chat, sign up, subscribe at the bottom. I don't get paid any money. That's fine. Subscribe and you'll get some silly email that said, I just posted the new one. And let's see what we can do this year. I'm willing to take your ideas, entertain them a little bit, and talk about them. You know, it's like we have to stop fighting over forts and pieces of dirt in the ground. We have to get over this silly fantasy that something's going to be a certain sort of way. We have to realistically look at it and say, wow, this is interesting. It is interesting. I have no idea where this is going to go. I used to think when I got old if I'd worry about death, and now I'm looking around and saying, wow, you know, I've been on this planet already 70 some years, and I have no idea how it operates. And I'm not sure that I'd want to live another 70 years to figure it out, because I'm not sure I could. I think it's just been an interesting trip. It's been a lot of fun. I'm game for the adventure, and it's like, wow, I want to know what we're going to do next. I had my big shock when I was 11 years old and they tore my fort down. It's just like, since then, it's like, I'm over it. All right, so come on, tear the fort down. I don't care. Let's see what happens, because we'll figure something out. We really need to get together and figure it out. So this is cool. So we're going to have fun this year, right? I got my blogs sitting in sequence. Go ahead and check into that. Read the blogs. Start to look at the idea. I left up, normally I take all old blogs down because that's yesterday's news. But I have a whole series of blogs that I've kind of left up for the last year and a half, of the old blogs that start to hear me ramp and rave about the two systems in play and the upcoming disaster that now we're buried in. And will be buried in for a while. So have at it. Get yourself some information. Send me some communication. Let's just get this chat going. Let's have fun. I'm even open to the fact that we could have a little group together. We used to do that in the old days, right? As soon as we can legally do that, why, it'd be nice to get a group together and have a kind of a roundtable discussion. That'd be kind of fun. Yeah, I know most of the time those is just me, blah, blah, blah. But I love the input from other people, right? So anyway, that's my agenda. That's what I'm going to play with a little bit. I'll probably change the background. I might even change my shirt occasionally. And who knows what else will change in this world. Let's have a little fun with it. Let's see what we can do. And hey, that's a wrap. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Take care. Bye.